Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Cam. Picture this. It is 3 o'clock on a freezing Tuesday morning, and the phone on a senior executive's nightstand starts buzzing. There has been a major equipment failure on the main production line. And the very first question out of that manager's mouth? All right, who was operating the machine, and what did they do wrong? Not, is everyone safe? Not, what was the system doing? Just a straight, desperate line to find a single throat to choke. It is what I call the myth of the omniscient leader. This absolute, deep-seated corporate expectation that if you are in charge, you must instantly know exactly what happened, why it happened, and who is to blame before the dust has even settled on the factory floor. And let's be fair dinkum here. That pressure to look like you are completely in control? It breeds absolute rubbish in investigations. When a leader feels they have to provide immediate answers to the board or the media, they do not wait for a thorough investigation. They grab the nearest, easiest explanation. And 9 times out of 10, that lazy cop-out is operator error. Old mate didn't follow the procedure. He had a slip or a lapse. Case closed, send him for retraining, and let's get back to making money. But as anyone who has ever stepped foot in a real site shed knows, blaming the person at the sharp end is just a way to sweep systemic failures under the rug. It is cheap, it is fast, and it is completely useless for actually preventing the next accident. If we want to build a safety culture that actually keeps people alive, the very first step is for a leader to have the backbone to stand up and say, I don't know yet, but we are going to find out. Admitting you do not have all the answers is not weakness. It is the literal foundation of a learning organization. It gives your investigators the breathing room to look at the system, not just the scapegoat. Now, when an incident does happen, what is the default setting for a lot of management teams? Absolute, stone-cold silence. They retreat behind the legal department, they lock the boardroom doors, and they say nothing to the workforce. They think they are managing liability. But let me tell you what the blokes on the front line actually hear when you stay silent. They hear that you do not care, or worse, that you are actively covering something up. Silence is a vacuum, and in a workplace, that vacuum gets filled with fear, rumors, and a massive loss of trust. You do not need to have all the facts to communicate. You just need to show up, look your people in the eye, and acknowledge that something went wrong. Instead, what do we get? We get hit with empty corporate slogans. Safety first, zero harm. We plaster them on high-vis vests. We put them on glossy posters in the lunchroom, and we repeat them like a mantra in the annual report. But those slogans have a funny habit of completely collapsing the second they face real operational pressure. Let's talk about what I call incompatible goals. It is a classic finding we see in systemic analyses all the time. Management is screaming safety first out of one side of their mouth, but out of the other side, they are demanding higher output, tighter budgets, and faster turnaround times. When a supervisor is told they are behind schedule, but they also have to follow a 20-page permitting process that takes 3 hours, what do you think actually happens? They make a trade-off. They take a shortcut because the system is rewarding speed, while only pretending to value safety. Pretending these daily conflicts do not exist is a recipe for disaster. We need to start talking about the actual reality of the work, not the fantasy version written in the boardroom. This brings us to the real moment of truth in any investigation. You assemble a team. You use a proper system-level methodology like ICAM, and you follow the evidence. You map out the timeline. You look at the procedures, the equipment, the environment, and the organization. And suddenly, the causal path leads straight past the frontline worker and points directly at a major executive decision. Maybe it was a massive budget cut to the maintenance program 2 years ago. Maybe it was a rushed management of change process where a new contractor was brought in on the cheap without proper vetting. That is the defining moment for an investigator and a massive test for leadership. I have seen leaders look at a thorough, evidence-based report that challenges their own decisions and just reject the recommendations. They say, no, that's too politically sensitive, or we can't afford that systemic fix, let's just write another procedure telling the guys to be more careful. That is not safety leadership. That is just paper compliance. It is protecting the brand at the expense of human lives. If you want to fix this, you have to embrace a genuine, fair, and just culture. It is about drawing a clear, transparent line between honest human mistakes, like slips, lapses, and rule-based mistakes, and actual, reckless behavior. When someone makes an honest mistake in a poorly designed system, you do not punish them. You fix the system. You redesign the process so that a simple human error cannot escalate into a catastrophe. It takes real operational humility to lead this way. It means being willing to look in the mirror and admit that your decisions at the top level directly impact the safety of the guy holding the wrench at the bottom. But the payoff? You get a resilient system, a trust-filled workforce, and a business that actually learns from its mistakes. Thanks for listening to this episode of Cam's Corner. Next time, we'll dive into how to avoid the most common traps when interviewing witnesses after an incident. Until then, stay safe out there. Ask the awkward questions and keep looking beneath the surface.